Come on, you can do this. Come on, you can do this. So, morning everyone. I'm here live on my business page. So, I am streaming out on my business page today. And the usual lies with good old Facebook. You'll have to excuse me. Have to excuse me. As usual, Facebook is doing its usual thing, which is that it's switched over to show me my profile page, which is as good as useless. And then I have to go in and I have to share this into my groups. So I have to share this into my groups. So I'm going to share this in to Create Great Health. I am going to share this into my, Pocket Sober Soup group. So I'm going live in those groups too. And if you're there, morning everyone. I'm going to share into my, come on, you can do this. So we'll see how Facebook feels. Oh, you're right, Facebook. You're having a bad time today. So let's see how we're doing. Come on, you can do this, Facebook. All right, so we want to share to another page if we can. Doesn't want to let me. So let's just crack on with this and let's just talk about what we're talking about today. So, morning, everyone. How are you today? It's the 2nd of December. So today is the 2nd of December, and I said I'd be coming in every single day to give you some tips on the countdown to December the 31st and going into the new year with amazing health. So today I am bringing something, I don't know if you can see this, probably not, yes you can. I'm bringing a little chart that I've created for you. So this is for you. This is a free bit of training that's going to come in every day and you can work on it yourself. So this is a bit of DIY, self-change. It's a bit of, getting to the roots of what's going on. So yesterday I was talking quite a bit about blocks, and I'm going to be talking about blocks quite a bit over this sort of first week, because as many of you know, I have a history of working with people who have major accidents, major catastrophic injuries, the kind of injuries and accidents that you would never, ever, seriously never wish on anyone you know. The kind of accidents where you're driving down the road and, you see the vehicles all crushed up and people come out of them with brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, amputations, really bad. And so working with those clients, excuse me, I've got a very itchy face today. I don't know why. I've got this giant spider living in my house, so it must be literally about that big. And I think it must be walking all over my face at night time. Woo! That will freak some of you out. Doesn't worry me at all. I like spiders. So I work with people who've had those massive injuries, kind of things that you couldn't possibly imagine. And those injuries actually cause people to how it's life-changing. Those are imposed on them. And it leaves a trauma, it leaves a mark. And trauma is one of these things that we talk about a lot these days, because most people have been through some form of trauma, especially women. The statistics for trauma are crazy, and I will read you some sometime. But what we're going to go through today, let's cut to the chase, is we're going to talk a little bit about you identifying what your blocks are and what is stopping you from beginning to start to make the shifts and changes required in order for you to create great health. We know there is a massive relationship between you, I don't know why, my mouth is watering today, between you creating great health and wealth. So there is a huge relationship between those two things. So I was thinking, and I came up with this idea for a chart, all right? And this is a really, really, really simple thing that you can try. I've just come up with it today. I just created it. It's an on the hoof type of creation because I knew I was coming into the group. And I know that for many people I talk to on the phone, they are, 99.9% of the people, by the time they jump on a call with me, know that they want to work with me. So most of them have already followed me around Facebook. They've got some good idea of who I am, what I stand for. They know that when they're on the call with me, the person that they're going to meet is me. And they know that 99.9% of the time, the reason that they are not shifting and changing is because actually they don't have some of the resources that they need in order to change. And also they need that support and accountability partner, and they need that confidence boost. So then they want to work with me. So there are always a small percentage of people, though, that I talk to, a reducing number now, who actually have just come on the call for a chat. Nowadays, I don't tend to go on calls for chats any longer. I'll have a chat before I talk to somebody either through Messenger or email or something similar. But by the time somebody actually wants to talk to me, normally they're pretty sure that they want to do some work with me. I'm not going to tell you what all my package prices are, so don't worry about that. But what I wanted to do was to actually create this chart for you to be working on yourself, to actually think about what it is that is the bind, if you like, that's holding you back from making these changes. So this is just literally created today, guys. So if you're watching this and you go, oh, I don't think this is very good, it's like, well, it was created in 10 seconds. All right, so I've just come up with this thing. So what this means is that you're going to get a piece of paper, plain piece of paper, and you're going to divide it up into, you can see I've got a list along the top here. All right, and then I've got lines down. So I've got columns down here, and I've got words in the top, and then over to the side here, I've got more words, and I'll tell you what I've put in them. So in the first column, when you do this, you just want to, and you can make as many columns this way as you want, because I'm going to explain what you're going to put in them. But the first column heading is going to be health, because the first column heading is actually just going to be around health. So you're putting that up. This is all about health. So what does health mean? Well, this is what we're going to go into. Then underneath that, because when we're talking about health, we're talking about the things you can control. So the first thing you're going to write is me. And then underneath that, you're going to write behavior. And I'll explain to you what I mean about behavior in a minute. And then underneath that, you're going to write in. And then underneath that, you're going to put me out. And then you're going to put me group. So this is breaking this down into something really simple that you can try. And as I say, try it, see how it works, give me some feedback. Along the top, you're going to write score, you're going to write love, you're going to write value, body, movement, rel means for relationships, future, time, mind, and quality. Okay, now you can adjust the top, but for now, just put those in. Okay, because what I'm wanting you to do, this is like an inventory. You're going to carry out an inventory to find out where you're at with what you're doing. Now, obviously, this is a recording, and that means that you can go back and you can play this recording again. And the reason for doing this is because I want you to begin to start to think about what the blockage is, literally, what the blockage is that's stopping you from going from one place to the next. Now, not so long ago, I ran a training. I used this diagram, which I drew. Day 2, you can see. And on this diagram, I was showing how, people are on this journey, They hit a point and they suddenly realize that where they want to go to carry on their journey, there's this gap, big gap in the way. So usually when people come to see me, the reason that they want to come and see me is because they need to bridge that gap. They need to go from where they are to continuing on their journey and get across this bridge, get across here. I say not bridge, get across this gap, this chasm. Okay, they don't want to fall down here. The only other way they can do this is to go right back to the beginning and start all over again, and that's not going to happen. So the work I do, what I do is I make that gap smaller. So we look at making the gap smaller, so it's not an insurmountable problem. You can just step across from one peak to the other. However, this block that people have right at the very beginning here, right there, before we work together, that block that's usually holding that person in that bind, and that might be you, being held in that bind by fear, by worry, by whatever, means that they're not actually going to engage with me in order to be able to get over to that side. And that's okay. I long ago gave up being concerned about whether people work with me after a certain point because it's their choice. So if I do some work with someone and what happens is that they decide that they don't like working with me because maybe I'm suggesting that there's something about what they're doing that might be affecting the outcome that they're getting, that's okay. It may well be that they need to go off, think about things for 6 months. It might be that they go on another training and then they suddenly wake up and go, oh, I get it now. And that's okay, because people are at different phases and stages when we work together. And so when you're creating this chart, this chart that we've drawn up, it's to help you to know where you are in relation to being on the top of that mountain. Because if you're on the top of that mountain and you're stuck there for various reasons that are holding you there on the top, then no, you're not going to be ready to want to work with me and step across, get to the other side and carry on and go towards where you are. And that's really very important to know, because sometimes with some of the clients, coming back to the story I was telling you about the people that I work with who have had catastrophic injuries, sometimes there's a lot of money at stake, or there's a lot of anger associated with the accident. It may be that the person really is angry because there's somebody else ran into them, they weren't paying attention, or they feel as if it's completely destroyed their life. Actually, where they are right then is at a place where they need to be heard, they need to heal, they need to mend, they need to come to terms and accept what's happening. And acceptance is a stage of moving on. We know this in grief counseling. Acceptance, you've got to accept what's happened, somebody's died, and then you can get upset about it and move on. So with what we're doing today, with this little exercise, if you like, what you're doing is you're thinking about all the different kinds of behaviors. So what is a behavior? Behavior is a thing you do. So your behavior might be an action, an activity, like your behavior might be something you do in the day. So it might be that you don't talk to people very much. It might be you talk to people a lot. It might be that you talk to people and tell them an enormous amount about yourself. It might be you never tell them about your deeper self. So when you speak, that is a behavior. So talking is a behavior. It may be that it's thinking. The behavior is thinking. And it might be that how you think to yourself. It might be what you do. It might be how you look after the house. It might be that you've got yourself into a state of depression and that actually you no longer do the housework, or you no longer bother about what clothes you're wearing, or you don't get out of bed. It might be that you don't like to go outside. It might be that you don't want to stay inside. It might be that you find yourself breaking things. It might be that you find yourself avoiding people. It might be that you don't do much exercise. It might be that you do a lot of exercise. It might be that you exercise on your own and don't like exercising with other people. You isolate yourself. It might be that you go to the opposite extreme and you only ever like to be around big groups of people and you hate being on your own. So that behavior that we're talking about, whoa, come on, focus, camera, is about the behavior, if you like, that is going on, that you can track, that's going on from inside you. So inside to out. You can look inside yourself and think about all of those different behaviors. And the next behavior that you're going to do underneath that is to write down a list of the behaviors that are, if you like, outward behaviors. You know, how do you interact with other people? How do you look at other people? How do you smile or not smile at other people? How do you drive your car on the road or don't drive your car? So the behaviors that are going out, these are behaviors you're expressing to other people. So the way I would explain that is that, say, sometimes when someone has had one of these major accidents, a behavior in might be that they have kept inside themselves because they haven't wanted to talk about it. So they're not talking, they're keeping talk going on inside themselves. And actually there is some trauma that they need to talk about to other people, but that they don't want to accept this. And when they're actually, say, going to see a counsellor or a psychotherapist, they're just not really talking about the deep stuff that's going on inside them. And actually then that means that that's never going to get resolved. So I don't know if this is all making sense. If not, we can do it again another day, but listen. And then you want to look right down here at this one, and this is me to do with group. So it's like, if you were to be in a group situation, would you be able to put your own stuff to one side and just work for the group? How does your behavior impact a group? You know, how does your behavior, how does your manifestation of pain impact people around you? And this is not being a pity party, and this is not also believing that something that you're doing is causing things to other people. You know, it is just being factual. You know, if it means that the family can't go on day trips because you get tired, write it down. If it's that if you forget your medication, you have to be taken home because you can't drive. You know, put it down. Just put all of these things down in a list there about your behaviors, because there are always going to be things. Now, you know, an outward behavior will be your pain. When you get those feelings of pain, that is you expressing pain outside. And your behavior, if you write pain, you might say, well, that's not, it's coming over me. No, it's an expression. Pain is an output, all right? I hope this is making sense. Now, along the top here, the score section, you can leave blank. You don't want to worry about that. And then the love section, you can leave blank. Now, the value section, what does that mean? Well, value means, what do you get out of this? Now, that's a really difficult way to look at things, but, you know, oftentimes, if somebody really won't accept what's going on, and I had this one time with a client with acute pain, and she said to me, I just can't accept what's happened. And this was 2.5 years after the accident. And when we were talking, she said, I know I should be accepting this, but I just can't accept it. I can't accept this is how I might be in the future. I can't accept the accident. And for me, accepting that she couldn't accept it was very important. However, for me, there had to be a value that she was placing on not accepting things. So that value, well, I'm going to sneeze. As you can tell, this is live. I think I've got a cold. So that value, what was that going to give her? You know, was she going to get, or, you know, are you going to get money? Are you going to get more time? Are you going to feel a sense of self-worth and self-esteem? You know, what is doing this behavior powerfully giving you? Yeah, because there has to be a value in it. There has to be a value for you to be holding on to this, because change is hard. And sometimes with the body, when it's manifesting symptoms, when it's manifesting feelings, the important thing to remember is that, for example, when you have pain, it may mean that you have to stop driving the car and get somebody else to drive for you because you've got pain. It might mean that you really can't stay sitting in the seat that you're sitting in the theatre because your leg is starting to hurt so much. It might mean that you get so much back pain that actually you have to go and lie down, and you start to get this pain coming on as a migraine when you're out socially, and it means you have to go home. So there's always going to be a value, always going to be a value, always going to be a value. And recognizing that there is a value to it means that you can do something about it. So on your value, it might even be that it's something to do with your identity, who you are. It might be that actually being part of a group of people who have the particular problem that you have gives you a sense of belonging. And that actually, if you no longer have this problem, then you would not be on part of that group. So there is a value in still having this problem and having it as an identity. In other words, I am someone with this problem, and other people, there are other people around me who have this problem too. And you know, this is not being judgmental, it's just being factual, it's just being real. It's like, yeah, of course there's a value in what we all do. Of course there's a value. So what else? What impact is the behavior that we've identified, the in and the outer, actually having on your body? What is it? What impact is it having on the ability for you to be able to move yourself around? What impact is it having on your relationships? What impact is it having on your future? What impact is it having on the amount of time you have during the day? What impact and relationship is there with your mind? And also your quality of life. So I've put those along the top there because those are things that I came up with, but there may well be other impacts that your behavior is having. So under, for example, value, I've got money. Now, let's give an example here. Let's say it's counterintuitive. Okay, so let's say you've got an output. We call it an output of pain. All right. What impact is that having on your ability to earn money, on the time that you have available to you, on your feeling of self-worth about yourself? What impact is that having on your body? It might be creating body fear. It might be that you have fear of your body, that you don't trust your body. What impact is that having on your movement? Well, it might be you just don't move the way you used to, and that means that you're beginning to get more and more incapable of doing things. So that might then actually start to create a sense and feeling of aging, that you're aging before your time, that actually you can't do things that you could do 5 years ago. What impact might that have on your relationships if you have a lot of pain? It might be that you don't have sex anymore with your partner because you have neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, fibro, whatever. It might be that you talk about the pain all the time. It might be that your partner is incredibly attentive when you have the symptoms. What about the time? Oh, sorry, future. What about what's going on in the future? What would it be like in 5 years' time if things still continue as things are, as they are right now? What does the future look like to be continuing to have these things? Your mind, what is the impact of your behavior on your mind, on your mindset? Is this pulling you down? In other words, as you're trundling along day to day, are you beginning to start to get to a point where, you know, you're going to really drop down into a relapse of depression? Or indeed, are you somewhere down here in a downward spiral? And actually, the whole thing is interrelated, and what sort of quality of life is this giving you? So what you can do with this is you can be beginning to start to map the kinds of behaviors that you have against these headings. Yes. And it might seem quite complex, but actually you can, this is something, if I'm working with people, I often actually get them to really appraise where they are, because in order to be able to want to absolutely 100% be balanced on the top of this, I want to be brave enough to work with me to go across here. You've got to have made that decision yourself. Your motive for wanting to change, and we all have motives for doing things. As I've said, motives are not negative. When we say people had a motive for doing it, it's like a burglary. There was a motive. It's like, yeah, a motive just means a reason for doing it, right? So there's always a reason for you to be where you are. And if where you are right now is stuck at the top of wherever it might be, and you don't want to go back, you don't want to go forwards, you're there, and you keep saying things like, well, one day I'm going to do something about this, then what I'd like you to do is to start to look at what real impact on your life this is having, so that as you begin to start to write down, you fill in all of those squares. Now, the two squares that I haven't got you to fill in are the score and the love. Now, when you're going through those two areas, why I've left those as they are is because I want you to give, if you like, some indication of how much love this brings you, what kind of love it brings you, and how much love you feel that you would need. So if you really do love yourself, really love yourself, and you're willing to put your oxygen mask on first, and you're up here on the top of the mountain, then you're going to be willing, to take that risk to jump across there, right? But if what's happening is maybe, you're low on love, and actually what happens is you get quite a bit of love and attention, from what's happening. So, you might find that when you're in pain, everybody notices you and rallies around. When you're talking about pain in a group, you might find it gives you a sense of, or somebody else is talking about pain, and you can chip in and say, oh, don't worry, you often feel like that. It's really important to think about where love comes from, because with really deep love comes the ability to be able to look after yourself and put yourself first, which is, if you've got a great big tiger coming into a cage and you're in the cage with 5 other people the same sort of age as you don't want to push all the people over to one side and go, eat me. You want to be doing what everybody else is doing and getting out of the way of the tiger. Yes. If you don't love yourself, you could sacrifice yourself and say, come on, tiger, eat me. But, you might go down in history as the man who was eaten by the tiger. But if you do that, then actually other people are not, they're going to be happy that they're alive, and they're going to be grateful for you. But they are still going to be alive, and they are going to be doing things. So when you have a lot of love, what I want you to do is be thinking seriously about this idea here of love. Are you getting love coming in from outside, which makes you feel loved when you're doing the behaviors that you're doing? These are this is very deep, controversial stuff, but it's not really, because the true truth is that, if I use the example of some of the people that I've worked with over the years, not wanting to let things go, actually they get a lot of attention. They get a lot of attention from talking about what is happening, and they get a lot of Well, they got a lot of people listening to what they have to say, or as I say, and a lot of these big groups of anxiety and all sorts of, there's all the time there are people asking for advice, and those people giving advice are giving love, and in return they get back love. But you have to look at how being in that group, is that, what value is that giving you? You might say it gives me a lot of value. It makes me feel great. How is it impacting your body? How is it impacting your movement? How is it impacting your relationships with people outside the group? How is it impacting your future? How much time are you spending on it? How is it impacting your mind when you're listening to all of these other people talking about things? How is it impacting your quality of life, your quality of life? And how much, do you love doing this? And literally, that's another one to put into the love equation. How much do you love being in this group, offering advice? How much do you love being in the group, reading all the comments and posts that other people are putting up? How much do you love being in the, in whatever it might be? And these are, how much do you love being where you are? How much do you love being where you are? And then when you actually started to complete some of that, I want you to be beginning to start to give this like a score. Because when you really start to read across what you're getting out of things, I want you to think whether it's a positive or whether it's a negative. And that's all I'm going to ask you to do. Would you score this positive or would you score it negative? And there's a relationship, a direct relationship between your score, wherever it is, here, and all the way over here with your quality of life, okay? Because if you consider that your quality of life is really improved by going to a regular meeting where everybody else has the same medical problems as you, it's the only outing you have, and when you go there, everybody talks about pain, and nobody talks about moving, nobody, then what you want to do is you could score that and say, well, in terms of my future, how is this getting me to have a fantastic future? But at the same time, you could say, well, is this really improving my quality of life? As in, if this was how life was going to be into the future, and this was how everything always was, how would that be? Would it really be a positive score, or would it be a negative score? I hope some of this is landing with you and it's getting you thinking, because what I'm wanting to do is really to get you thinking about what it is that's causing you to be really tied in to staying as you are. And I'm going to refine this because this is a first draft of something I'm working on towards and around a big program that I provide for people with persistent and chronic pain and anxiety. My pain mastery and worry warrior program, because right at the beginning we have a theory of change which is called the trans theoretical model of change, and a part of that is around motives and whether people want to change. Because if somebody doesn't want to change, then there's no point in putting any interventions in at all. Absolutely none. Absolutely none. There is no point in putting any interventions in because they will not work. So when I'm working with people, I need to know that they really, really, really want to go from here to here. Yeah. So if you're here and there's too much tying you to staying here, then that's okay. Perfectly okay to want to stay there. The thing is, I work with people who want to do this, right? I work with people who want this bridge, who really want to go there. They don't want their life to be like this in the future. They don't want to be thinking like this in the future. They know the quality of their life could be much better. They know that the values that they're getting out of what's going on right now, this is not what they want. They want to have more money. They want to have more time. They want to have more self-esteem. They want to feel better about themselves. They want to be able to put up barriers, boundaries. They want to be strong and powerful in themselves. They want to feel love inside themselves, not just because they get given love by other people because of how they're behaving. And so they want to change a lot of that. And as I say, when I'm working with people, or even when I'm working in my group, what I'm assuming is there are going to be some people who are here who are just thinking about beginning, and those are the people that I love to have chats with. Why? Because those people have already started to look at what impact them being where they are is going to have on them in a year's time, in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, when they look back and they say, wow. Because if what happens is you look back to a year ago and things are worse than they were a year ago, you can future pace and say, well, then they're sure as heck going to be worse in a year's time. And that is not a depressive thought. Let me just put this out there. Because there are so many small things that you can do, skills and strategies that you can learn that will actually enable you, first of all, to stop that downward spiral. You remember I showed you this? If you are starting to go down this, it's not an inevitability that you get worse and worse. No, you can stop at any point. And for some of the people that I've worked with, especially people who've had massive accidents and injuries, who when I first met them were down here, actually for them to stay there for a while is an improvement, because when I first met them, they were going down and down and down. And actually just to keep somebody held here until actually they feel ready to be beginning to go up, and then to get up and move on. Yes. So sometimes in the group, what I'm doing is I'm putting in information, and it might be that it lands for you and you think to yourself, do you know, there is something here that I can use, but I'm not ready to engage fully. That's fine. If what's happened is it's enabled you to move, to even stay still while you appraise what's happening, that actually is an improvement. So that's actually a powerful thing to have happen. So I'd really be interested in getting some feedback. It's the 2nd day of December. As you all know, I'm coming in every day between now and Christmas. So I'm coming in every day between now and Christmas, and I'm going to bring you another little tip, another little something that you can actually put into practice, another little skill for you, something that you work on by yourself, something that will enable you to be beginning to start to appraise what's happening. And the reason that I'm doing this is quite simply because, as you know, I want you to create great health. That's it. The name of the change name of the group is Create Great Health. And that's because it's not having less anxiety and pain. It's create great health, right? If you create great health, it's about creating it. It's not happening to you. You're going to create great health. So have a lovely rest of the day. Have a busy, flourishing time. Love you all. I will check later to see if there's any comments on this. If not, I will come in again tomorrow. Bye. Have a great rest of the day.